Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer for Geek Vibes Nation. I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Attic new release roundup. Look, we are back together again, and it
Mhm.
feels so good, and I am so excited. If you're new here, welcome. What we do is we go back and forth and we talk about the latest home video releases. Some are good, some are awful, but you know what? We always have a good time talking about it, telling y'all if it's worth your time. But I am going to let you start this party off.
Yes, thank you. I missed you last week, Mike. I was off
Ah,
Sundancing, so I'm glad to be back here in the video attic. But I'm going to start off with a bit of a bang because I have two from Scream Factory that I'm very excited to share. The first is a new special edition release of Jennifer 8, which stars Andy Garcia and Uma Thurman. This was first released on Blu-ray over a decade ago by Warner Brothers, but that was an older master. This has been newly polished up with a 4K scan of the original camera negative, and there's some other special things about it that I'll kind of get into in a little bit. But I'd actually never heard of this one, but once I did, I was interested because uh, every now and then my wife she likes to get into kind of these moods where she goes into like 80s and 90s like thrillers, and so this is kind of like a murder mystery thriller. We actually last year watched Kevin Costner's No Way Out, which was recently announced for a 4K that Kino's going to be putting out. So you can thank her for having us watch that for that 4K announcement. But it's a fairly interesting, not quite great serial killer drama. It's not to the level of like a Seven or Zodiac, all David Fincher movies. It's not to the level of like his prowess in the genre, but for what it is, it's pretty entertaining. Andy Garcia plays a detective that has been brought into this police precinct where um, he notices that there's been a series of killings that had like stopped at one point, but has like started back. And um, you come to learn that this serial killer is targeting blind women, and Uma Thurman plays a blind woman, which do with that as you will. It becomes like kind of a interesting dynamic between the two, where he kind of feels protective of her, and there's like a little bit of a romantic thing going on as he's trying to protect her against this serial killer that's on the loose. And he has a partner that's like a seasoned detective played by Lance Henriksen, and there's a lot of pretty good character actors. John Malkovich shows up later in the picture as well, which I always love seeing John Malkovich in a good movie. But there's some problematic elements to this story, and the actual mystery is fine, but it's a little, I feel the movie's a little bit over long. It's 2 hours and 4 minutes and it's theatrical cut. And it really could have been tightened up a little bit more. And then there's some leaps of logic that you have to kind of give yourself over to this. This is more along the line of like trashy, like serial killer drama rather than like prestige serial killer drama. So if you're in that mood, I think it does the trick, but it's not exactly like high art. But I love the actors, so that's kind of what was drawing me into this. It's just like I love the performers, and there's a lot of good performances in this, even if the movie itself is a little hit or miss. But this release, as I said, it's been released on Blu-ray before. I do not have that one, but this new 4K scan of the original camera negative looks fantastic. It's a very nice transfer, and it's just no nicks or scratches, really nice colors. This has a lot of moments in darkness and has really deep dark blacks that aren't crushed, which is really good. And it's just no DNR or anything. It's just a real natural presentation. And in addition to a new scan, this has an all new extended cut that's never been seen before, which runs about 5 minutes longer. I watched the theatrical cut, and then I knew that the extended footage was mostly at the end, so I put that on to see how the two compared. And the new footage actually seems to be from a lesser quality source. It doesn't look terrible, but it's a slightly lesser source. And I don't think it actually works as well. So I think it's more of a curiosity rather than like an essential new cut of the movie, because I think it actually undercuts this kind of like female empowerment angle that kind of goes with the theatrical ending. It goes more into like, oh, you needed a man to save you, which kind of I didn't really like. But as a something that no one's ever seen before, I think it's a cool addition, and you can see that extended alternate ending as a separate special feature. If you don't want to watch the entire film, you can watch it separately as well. And in addition to that, you have an all new retrospective documentary, which has the director, Andy Garcia, and Lance Henriksen reflecting on the movie. And that runs about 43 minutes. So it's a pretty substantial documentary of all these three figures reflecting on the movie, which is pretty cool. And then it also has like a trailer and stuff. So the alternate ending / extended cut, new documentary, new scan. If you are a fan of this movie, I think this is the essential version. Without it being released on 4K, it's the essential version. I'm not sure if any label would think that the cost would weigh out for a 4K release. It seems kind of more of a minor title. But as just like a really, really good Blu-ray release, this special edition from Screen Factory does do the trick. And I think fans of the film will appreciate it. New on Blu-ray from Screen Factory, though, is Funeral Home, which is a Canadian horror film that I think is also goes under the title Cries in the Night. That is what shows up on the screen, but I think it's more popularly known as Funeral Home. And this is one that I had not seen previously, and I've seen people compare it to Psycho. That's pretty close, kind of, or more so like a more straight-laced Motel Hell, just based on some of the issues. But so yeah, Cries in the Night. Here's the alternate cover that this comes with. So this involves a girl who goes to stay with her grandmother at her house that has recently been converted from a funeral home to kind of more of like a bed and breakfasty type situation. And once she gets there, she starts to pick up other weird things happening, and people start disappearing, and some guests never check out. And it's a little kind of creepy town. And she notices like it's her grandmother speaking to a mysterious person in the basement and all that kind of situation. It is fine. It is definitely derivative of some of the movies I talked about, and it's not the best, but if you are a fan of like early 80s horror films that maybe don't have the biggest reach, like you have like kind of these gems that kind of have been like overlooked, not that I would call this a gem, but just little overlooked horror films, it's worth a watch. It's just there are better versions of it. If you haven't seen Psycho, definitely see that. But also I would watch Motel Hell before this. But it's entertaining and kind of just like kind of cheesy 80s horror derivative movie. This is noted as being from a new 4K scan. Of the source, I do not know. They do not note that. Actually, it might not be a 4K scan. It just says like a scan of the 2023 scan of the original camera negative. So I don't know the condition of the original camera negative, but I will say that the quality of this is kind of inconsistent. And I think based on like me being hardly able to find any really good pictures of this online whenever I was doing the initial news story, I think this is something that's never really had a good release because everything just seems to be kind of bottom of the barrel, like horrible quality. So it would not surprise me if the source was kind of in rough quality because there's some color fluctuations along the way. It's not every scene, but there are certain scenes where you'll notice like, oh, the color's kind of like getting brighter and lighter and stuff, or brighter and darker and stuff. And there's a little bit of damage here and there, and not like extreme damage, but there's enough that you know that they probably weren't working with the most stable elements. So for having a new, like this movie in HD, it is a win for anyone who's a fan. But I think that anyone who wants it to look pristine, this is not a movie that I think is ever going to look pristine. There have been many other boutique labels that have like found these slasher films that you just kind of are grateful that they were able to release them at all. And I think this is kind of that similar situation where maybe this would have been lost otherwise, but they did the best with what they could. And it is a good release, and they do make up for some of the audio visual quality, which the audio is also a little bit hollow as well. You can tell that there's some age there. Once again, not terrible, not constant pops or anything, but it's a little vintage sounding. But this does have some good special features. It has a commentary track, an isolated score that functions kind of like an audio commentary track where there's an interview portion and then talking, like the composer is talking about the score, and then you get to hear the isolated score as well. There's also an audio interview with several different people associated with the production that functions like a commentary. You can switch to that audio track and hear several different audio interviews that have been stitched together. And then there's also a standalone video interview, or two interviews that run 12 and 16 minutes long. And there is a location scouting featurette and a trailer. So pretty good number of special features. The audiovisual is in as good as quality as you can probably expect for a film of this vintage and like not being available, like scarcity. So if you are a fan of under the radar slashers, Funeral Home, it's been given a pretty good release. It's not the best movie, but it does the trick as well. So I would say both of these, not great movies, but they do the trick, like I said.
Nice. I know Funeral Home is definitely about a buy for me because I feel like I watched it and it was fine, but I'm like a 80s horror completist, so like gimme, gimme, gimme.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I am going to be digging into the latest film noir box set. We're always really excited about these. So I'm gonna do one title now and then the other two together because I feel like they function more as like a pair. So my first one is based on Edgar Allan Poe's The Mystery of Marie Roget. And back. So yeah, I have to say I'm a little bit hot and cold with some of the mystery movies that are in some of these film noir box sets. But I really do like this one. I think it's very charming. This was made by Universal, and it very much feels akin to one of those really great old Universal horror movies. In fact, this movie has a really great cast, but my favorite is Maria Unspengaya. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, but she was in The Wolfman 1941, and the best way to describe her is she's a force of nature without ever having to raise her voice. She's just this presence. She's just, oh my God, she's awesome. But anyways, she's in this and she doesn't have a huge part, but every time she's on, I'm just captivated. But yeah, it's a fairly interesting, and I wouldn't qualify this as like a cozy mystery, but it still kind of has that feeling at times whenever like they're in the mansion and they're trying to figure this out. Usually cozy mysteries are just a single setting location, but this has a little bit more scope to it. And it's also interesting because the detectives they reference the previous case, which is of course one of Poe's most famous mysteries, the murders in the Rue Morgue, and they reference that quite a few times in this. And this even involves an animal, so there's really interesting kind of parallels to that. And while I think the solution could have been maybe set up a little bit better, obviously I'm not going to like spoil it, but I do think it's really fun. I do think, like I said, it has a really great cast, great cinematography. The atmosphere is very universal. It's very foggy and like this ridiculous moonlight that looks just basically like daylight. Mwah, I love it. So this looks really good too. This comes from a 2K scan of the 35 millimeter fine grain, and it's not flawless, but it really looks nice. There are a little bit of like artifacts and damage, but I think it's actually one of the best restorations in the set. None of them are really bad, mind you, but like this one I think is like heads above the other ones. And yeah, the commentary you get two commentary tracks, in fact, which is really nice. And I think like this is the release on this set that's like really given sort of a little bit more of the deluxe treatment. And it definitely is my favorite of this set. But yeah, it might not be on kind of everybody's radar, but it's fun. I really want this poster actually, because it's really cool. Not that I could afford like a 1942 movie poster, but just putting out there in the universe, I want it. But yeah, it's a fun watch, and it was a really great introduction to this new film noir set.
Yeah, I was very thrown off whenever I started that movie, and I was like, this seems unlike most of the movies that have been in these film noirs. It took me a little bit to acclimate, but then once I started, I mean, it's a really good movie. I think
Mhm.
some like film noir snobs might object to its inclusion, but like I think it's a good movie, and I think people, if they give it a chance, they'll really quite like it.
Yeah, and real quick, I also wanted to mention Maria Montez is in this, and Kino has been really doing right by fans of hers. They did a box set a little while ago. They've also released a couple individual titles that she's in. So if you really like her titles and stuff, that's a good one to put in your collection.
Absolutely. My next title, I'm starting down a path of a trio of OCN distribution partner label titles. So my first one is with Deaf Crocodile, and they've been giving us a lot of great stuff and a lot of interesting animation, and they've done it again with Bill Plimpton's The Tune, which is his feature debut, and it's a really interesting one. It's done in a color pencil style, and uh, here I'll show you kind of the interior as well. So here's the inside here. Get this here, and then the disc here, and a booklet. So yeah, you get essay and photos and stuff. So gotta love a dog with a pompadour. It's great. This is a feature-length movie. It runs right about 70 minutes long, and it involves a struggling musician here who's trying to craft his next big tune, and he goes on an adventure to visit his girlfriend and her boss, who like works in the music business, and he finds himself on like a quixotic journey where he ends up in a land where everything's a little bit off. Like everyone's just writing songs and performing songs, and there's like dogs with pompadours just singing like Elvis inspired tunes, and there's like anthropomorphized food that are singing about their struggles, and just like all kinds of weird, interesting, funny dynamics. Like there's some good songs here, surrealist imagery, some real like big laughs. It's just a really interesting time, and I love animation so much, and I love whenever we get to talk about more adult skewing animation, which I love, like Disney and Pixar and DreamWorks, all that. It's great, but it is a medium, and I like when the medium is used to kind of expand beyond what you expect from animation. And Bill Plimpton, especially with this and some of the other shorts that are on this disc, he is a fascinating individual, and I'm very interested in checking out more of his work. But it's a fantastic time as far as the movie itself. And this has been newly restored by the Academy Film Archive. So this has been archived, but it's been meticulously restored by the Academy, along with a couple of his shorts that are on here. So there's like a short from 1988 that was nominated for like a Best Animated Short that's been restored. It's really interesting, and it's also musical based. And there's a couple other short. One is recently, it's like 2004, which I really like because it almost is like a more interesting take on the secret life of pets, where it's like you get to see why this dog who is on a walk keeps barking, like what he envisions that like is going to, like all these animals that he encounters are going to harm his owner, and how that kind of manifests. It's a really fun short. So there's three original Plimpton shorts, and then there's a short that Plimpton, I think in like 2010 or 11, he restored from this artist in 1911 that he thought was kind of like forgotten, and he like restored this animation, but he kind of remixed it a little bit by adding voice actors and some music and stuff to kind of like blend the old with the new. So he rescued that and kind of like gave it a second life. So that short is also on here. There's an archival audio commentary track and a new audio commentary track, one with the like the creatives and one with some film historians. There's also a new almost hour-long interview with like Plimpton and some of the actors and the like composer and stuff, and then like some trailers and all kinds of like little small little things here and there, but those are like the main things. But so this is packed with shorts and interviews and commentaries and just a really good movie at the center of it. So the tune, if you're a fan of adult skewing animation, it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I love a good alternative cartoon, like you said, is skewing more towards adults. So that's really interesting and definitely one that was like not on my radar, but now I definitely want to check that out. So my final two titles from the new Noir set, I'm going to talk about. One is Iron Man, not the Marvel Iron Man, but Iron Man if it was done in 1951 with Rock Hudson. Um, so yeah, this of course is a boxing movie. Again, we're getting a little loose with the film noir title, but that's fine. And it's funny because of these sets. I've been seeing a lot of boxing movies, and yeah, this one's kind of interesting. It kind of takes the boxing element into more of a kind of bleak. Um, I guess maybe it has some atmospheric sort of flourishes like film noir, but it's basically this like downfall of this guy, how his girlfriend feels responsible, and it's fine. It's one of those that's very kind of forgettable. Again, I like the human drama and not necessarily it being like a sports movie, which is a lot of like what these boxing movies are. But it's a little samey at times, again, especially when you've seen a lot of these. There's really not a lot of like interesting new elements. But yeah, it's got a great commentary track, which I think definitely helped me appreciate it a little bit more. Also, yeah, it does have a young Rock Hudson. He's not like top billed because he wasn't really that well known at the time. So my next title is Chicago Deadline. Now, Lewis Allen might be familiar to like cinephiles. He did the really excellent The Uninvited with Ray Milland. That movie is very atmospheric. It's definitely very bleak and poetic. And I mention that because I feel like this takes on that kind of same somber. It starts with the murder of a young girl in this like dingy apartment. And yeah, I love how like seedy it is. Everybody feels scummy. It probably is the most noir out of all these like titles. Like you have Alan Ladd, who's been in a lot of film noirs, playing the detective, going through this woman's life, figuring out what happened. I don't know. I just love the atmosphere. I could definitely tell it was somebody that would do something like The Uninvited because it is very pulpy, and that's really what I want from my film noir. Something that, maybe it's not the most clever movie in the world, but it does like kind of dig you in, especially with this like nihilism that it has running through it. Thought it was great. Donna Reed, who doesn't love Donna Reed? She had the Donna Reed show back when people just had shows named after them. Love it. As for how these look, as I said up front for my first one, these both are a little bit spotty at times. Certainly some of the elements look a little better than others, but um, it overall looks really nice, and they all have commentary tracks. I think that's awesome. It does give you a little bit more bang for your buck. And yeah, I don't know. As soon as they released volume one of this, I needed all of them. So like Kino knows what they're doing. You're gonna get it if you're a completist. I know you have a shelf full of these too.
Yeah.
So like gimme, gimme, gimme. But this is a really good set. Like I said, Iron Man was a little bit disappointing, but I thought the other two were really well worth the price alone. It's a nice set, and we are getting another set very soon, which I'm really excited about. And I don't really know any of those titles, but that's the fun of it. So
Yeah, Kino mostly for me, I just associate with Discovery because I never like, yeah, the bigger titles like Kindergarten Cop or something I know, but then there's a lot of stuff that they're throwing out. I'm like, let's roll the die. Who knows? Like, let's go. But that's what I love about them. They're great. My next title is my next one through the OC Distribution Partnership. This one is Yellow Veil Pictures, and I mentioned OCN Distribution because I forgot to mention with the tune, and also this one, Dogs Don't Wear Pants. And my next title, if you are a slipcover fanatic, you can go to the Vinegar Syndrome website or certain websites of these companies, like Deaf Crocodile has their own website where you can get a really, really nice slipcover for just a few dollars extra. So if you're a slipcover fanatic, go directly to these retailers to get these. But yes, Dogs Don't Wear Pants is from Yellow Veil Pictures, and it is a really interesting drama. I believe it's from Finland, and this was from like 2019. So here's the interior and a booklet, and this does have reversible cover art, which I'll show off here in just a second. So here's booklet and some essay and photos and all that good stuff. So we'll go ahead and reverse the cover art so you can kind of get a sense of this movie, which was not on my radar at all. So similar to Kino, I love the discovery that comes with some of these partner labels. And so this is it's an interesting one. I ended up actually really liking it. It is about a man who, at the beginning of the film, he has a young daughter, and at the beginning of the film, his wife dies in a drowning accident, and it kind of jumps forward in time, and he's a surgeon, and he's kind of just become numb to the world. He doesn't seem outwardly like despondent or anything, but he's just kind of been disassociated with the world. And then he goes one day with his teenage daughter to get a tongue piercing, and he wanders off, and he ends up in like this S&M dungeon, and he inadvertently, like there's through mistaken thing, he gets like hurt, but he likes it, and it kind of sets off this like journey into his experiences with like S&M, and like it makes him feel alive for the first time in several years. And he's like him using this physical pain to work through his psychological and emotional trauma, and he's not completely hiding it from the world, but he's also not like displaying it. Like he's a very idiosyncratic character, where sometimes where you're like, okay, he's going to make like an excuse for this, he just outright says certain things. I'm like, interesting. Like he's a very blunt character, but that's what I really like about him and his journey, and the dynamic he shapes with the woman that ends up being like his object of pain that supplies him the pain. She has her own kind of unique journey where what she is getting out of the situation with like the power dynamics. There's an intro to this movie that's included on this disc, which is about 4 minutes, I believe, with the director. And he says this isn't intended to be like a accurate depiction of S&M and the society, like the culture, but this is like two people working together within their own boundaries and comforts to gain something in like a mutually like beneficial and respectful way, and like working through that trauma. And I really like that about the movie. It's never demonizing this culture, even though some people might like raise their eyebrow at it. And it's also not exploitative as well. Like there's a little bit of nudity here and there, and like some like obviously the sadomasochism. There's things like you see certain things that might shock general viewers, but if you're not easily offended, and you like kind of boundary pushing stories, I think you'll like this movie. And I really liked it. And if you feel like you've watched our show enough and you know my sensibilities, if you generally like what I like, check it out. It's a fun fun one. But it's a unique title that I would have never heard of probably otherwise. And this is a really good release. It's like I said, it's like 2019, so it's a relatively newer movie. So good HD transfer, original language, subtitles, no spelling errors from what I could tell. Everything looks and sounds good. There is a commentary track, the aforementioned intro. There are 3 interviews, one like the director and the 2 stars. Each of them range for about 20 to 30 minutes, so they're pretty substantial interviews that run about over an hour. And then there's also a some camera tests and a trailer. So little pretty good assortment of special features. Like I said, if you want a slipcover, go to if Yellow Veil Pictures. I'm not sure if they have a storefront, either them or the Vinegar Syndrome website, and go to the partner labels, get you one. But either way, this is worth having in your collection if you like kind of like weird boundary pushing cinema. So dogs don't wear pants because he's the dog. So why is he wearing pants? See,
I get it.
it's a good one.
It all makes sense now.
Yeah.
No, I had heard about that one. I heard really good things. So this is like a really good excuse to actually like get it. I think that would definitely be like it sounds intriguing enough to just be a blind buy. So I wish I could say that about my next title, which is just kind of okay. That is Running Scared. And this does have a slipcover. And I don't think it has no, it doesn't have reversible art. I think Neon City, that my next one does, but yeah, so Running Scared is a buddy cop movie, and I do want to say some like nice things about it, because I do think that there are some really good things going on here. Namely, I really love that. I'm trying to think what city this is supposed to be in. Oh, Chicago. So it takes place in Chicago, and it has that very gritty 80s aesthetic. Like the city looks grungy and grimy. It looks like something from like RoboCop. I love that. It definitely doesn't look maybe as like polished. And yeah, that's always great. You have really, really good actors like Jimmy Schmidt in this. Side note, you see way more of Jimmy Schmidt's body than probably I ever wanted to. And listen, if he's your thing, like this movie's probably for you. I do also love that John Grise is in this. You might not know the name, but if you know Napoleon Dynamite, he is Uncle Rico, and he's been in Real Genius, which is a favorite of mine, and a ton of other really great stuff. TerraVision, I could go on, but anyways, so yeah, it has that very authentic '80s grimy sort of a little bit go for broke kind of attitude. So my problem is it's a buddy cop movie where the partners do not have chemistry as much as they're trying. It's like I'm not buying. So Gregory Hines and Billy Crystal, I think individually, I think they do a really nice job. I think as a pair, I don't really buy that dynamic. I mean, it's really tough. Even if you're going, I think they're going for like ooh, they're opposites, but they fit well together. I'm not buying. I mean, it's not to disparage either actor. Again, I think like given the material, yeah, like they're trying their hardest. It's not coming across. To say something nice though, I will say there's some really interesting twists, especially with like I'm trying to think of this as like a much of a spoiler, but there's a kind of a cool second act twist with the drugs that I thought was clever. I feel like little touches like that keep it at least engaging enough. But yeah, some of it's just not funny. I'm not buying the dynamic. It's a little bit of a tough watch at times, but it's not totally bad. And it does have some decent action sequences. So I don't know. I give this like a meh. Like if you like Billy Crystal, if you like Gregory Haynes, if you just love any 80s buddy cop movies, by all means check it out. Like I said, there are some fun moments in it. There are some clever twists, but I don't know. I think if I believed the dynamic between the cops a little bit more, I probably would have had a much better time. I don't see where this is like a new restoration, but it looks pretty decent, especially for its age. Colors really come out really nicely. It showcases like the city in kind of a nice grimy way, especially the exterior scenes look really nice. No real complaints about how it looks and sounds. We do get an archival commentary track from the director and some featurettes. So yeah, it's a nice presentation. The movie is just okay, but if you like these actors, I think you could do a lot worse.
Yeah, this is one of those classic Kino releases that they've been doing a lot of recently, where they released this previously, I think probably in like 2015, 2016, and now it's getting a new like re-release
Okay.
with, I think this is probably a new encode and then a slipcover. I'm not sure about any new special features, but this should be a new encode, so not a refresh, but just like an expansion of what was already there and chance for people to with slipcover like MB
Yeah.
to get that. So
Yeah. Do you happen to know if this was previously out of print
I think they usually put those out of print like a few months or a year before they
before
re-release
they?
them. So
All right.
yeah, so,
Okay.
so the old one should be out of print.
Well, there you have it. I'm glad. Appreciate that information. Yeah, I didn't realize this was released previously, so that's cool.
Kino has a lot of those coming up, especially this month. They have several that we'll be talking about.
Mhm.
But I mean, they're releasing a lot of titles that I didn't pick up originally, so I'm loving it. So it's helping us out. My next title is my last one from Ocean Distribution's partnership. This is from ETR Media, and this is Never Surrender, a Galaxy Quest documentary, which I only have problems with just because it makes me want Galaxy Quest on 4K. So like Paramount, what are you doing? Give this to me. But so here's the disc, and there is reversible cover art, which I'll show off here. So based on the title, you can pretty much understand exactly what you're getting here. It is a Galaxy Quest retrospective. I think that's a pretty cool alternate cover art here, where they gathered a bunch of the original cast, including like Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, Sam Rockwell, Justin Long, everyone like of course there are cast members like Alan Rickman who have sadly passed away quite a while ago, but they've gathered a good amount of the actors and then famous fans or like diehard fans of the movie that have been like at conventions and stuff. So you get people like Paul Scheer or Damon Lindelof or just different people commenting on like why Galaxy Quest has like gained such a cult following and why it was kind of groundbreaking. And it's pretty standard, but I just really enjoyed it. If you like these types of documentaries that are like really focusing in on like a very like specific movie or subject, I think you'll enjoy it, even if it is kind of familiar. It's great. So there's like a lot of talk about how like Galaxy Quest really embraced fandom and didn't like talk down to fandom. Like it was like fandom come to life, because there was like a point they make a point in like the 90s where William Shatner had like the SNL appearance where they jokingly was like get a life to the fans, but this is more so like a love letter to fandom and how people invest so much of their life like in certain properties and what it means to them and the performers, and then how it leads to this out of this world experience. And it's a really nice documentary. It's not, like I said, not groundbreaking, but it's just a really lovely look at this movie. And so I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I really, really want Galaxy Quest on 4K. I really wanted it for a while, but this really, I was just like, let's do this, Paramount. Come on. And so it's a newer movie. It's like within the past few, it's 2019. Nice high definition transfer. Audio is perfectly solid for like a talking head documentary. It's not too dynamic, but it works well. There's a good number of additional interviews that weren't used in the movie. So altogether, with all the interviews, they total about 70 more minutes of extended interviews. So quite a bit of footage, and then like some like promo reels and stuff like that. But so with the interviews and then the documentary footage, if you're a fan of these performers or the movie or anything, I think you're really getting your money's worth. And as I said, if you want a slipcover, you can go to the ETR Media Store or Vinegar Syndrome OCN Distribution, or select indie retailers like Diabolic or Grindhouse or something will probably have it. You get yourself a slipcover. But either way, if you like these types of documentaries, which they did want, ETR Media also released one, which I did not cover, but they did one on the movie Clue. So if you like a deep dive into Clue, there's the one for that one as well. So Never Surrender, a Galaxy Quest documentary. It's fun. You know what you're getting, but it's a lot of fun.
Nice. I heard about that one. I think Oh, I'm trying to think. Honest Trailers was maybe talking about that. Yeah, that definitely sounds like one I will definitely be checking out. My next one is, listen, I don't hate movie ripoffs. I think sometimes it can be a lot of fun. This one's not one of those. It is Neon City, which is very much trying to be like Mad Max.
Mhm.
Here's the back. Oh no, this doesn't have. Why? I don't think I have anything that has reversible art this week. But got a nice slip cover. So yeah, this is listen, like I said, I don't hate a Mad Max ripoffs. Like I think there's some really entertaining ones. But you also have like ones that are certainly not very good. I mean, this one I will give credit where it's due. It is very ambitious. And I will even go as far as saying like the world building can be really interesting in this one. Like, so basically, it's a group of people that are trying to get to Neon City, which is like one of the last kind of like refugee cities that's not like polluted and awful, but like they have to go through all these obstacles in the way, of course. There's like one scene that's actually kind of impactful. They come across these like group of people that are like super disfigured and like they basically like beg this guy that I can't remember his character name, but Michael Ironside's character to like give him or sell them this potion or something. So you're like, oh, it's like medicine or whatever. And then as they're like driving by, so they have character who she's very posh. She's sort of like lived very literally sheltered, and she kind of acts as like a really good point of view character, played by Juliet Landau, who was in Ed Wood and is awesome. But they inform her that what they gave these people were poison, basically just to end their misery or whatever. And it's like fun. Like and then there's like this like weird radiation cloud that they go through that they have a procedure to put masks on and like it's I don't know like it doesn't equate to a good movie, but I'm like at least it feels thought out. Like this world feels kind of tangible. Like I've definitely seen bigger budget movies that have less world building somehow. But I think the biggest problem is every one of these characters you're stuck with are super annoying. Have you seen this one yet?
Mhm.
Do you know who I'm talking about? Like who do you think was the most annoying person on that out of that motley crew?
Uh, I, I I think the person who did the heel turn was pretty annoying, but I mean they're all pretty annoying.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say mine was like the comedian
Mm.
saying that
Mhm.
very, I'm using that word very broadly. Like
Yeah.
it's, you know how dad jokes are kind of endearing. Like they're so cheesy, they're kind of fun. These are just really bad. Everybody to various degrees are just so shitty. And they're in this
Mm.
shitty situation, and it's like they're just kind of making it shittier for everybody to
Yeah.
be shitty. I don't know. It's not fun to spend time with these characters, even if there are some kind of arcs and stuff. There is a really interesting commentary track. Heather Buckley moderates it. She's awesome. I've been friends with her for a while. Yeah, this is it's okay. I mean, again, if you like Michael Ironside, if you like Vanity, if you like some of these actors in like a weird Mad Max style post-apocalyptic movie, like it's okay. I think that artwork's way better than movies. But yeah. Did you like it?
More than you, but I didn't love it. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I didn't like. I don't mind a ripoff either if it's done well. I think I just was more so happy just to see Michael Ironside in more of a leading role, which he
Hmm.
occasionally gets, but I like him quite a bit. I've always liked him, and it's a little bit of a different role for him, but he plays it well, and it doesn't all come together. But I think it's fine. I didn't find certain some of the characters you mentioned are pretty annoying, but on the
Hmm.
whole, I didn't find people aggressively annoying. So
Yeah.
it was forgettable, but fine. I like watched this in like November, and it's a little bit's there, but not all of it. So whenever you're like most annoying character, I was like, okay, I kind of remember this
Mm.
version. The
Yeah.
posh lady is also pretty annoying from what I remember.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I mean, yeah, it's kind of forgettable, but
yeah,
it's certainly not the worst. So.
yeah. My next title, kind of in the same mood. So this is a trilogy of movies where I had seen the first one and I own the first two, but I just never got around to seeing the second one. So the second and third were new to me. But we have this year, we have a new Joker movie coming out. And we also just got Bradley Cooper nominated for Best Actor. So, what better time to revisit the Hangover trilogy from director Todd Phillips? So, these movies, I saw the first Hangover in theaters, and fun fact, after seeing The Hangover with my group of friends, that afterwards I received my first and only speeding ticket. So that's a fun fact about me. And so here's the second, third, which I never owned, and then there's a retrospective called Wolfpack Only, the Hangover retrospective. I remember liking The Hangover pretty well, but I'd always heard horrible things about the second and third ones, so I just never got around to it. Rewatching The Hangover, I was like, "Oof, this is aged like milk in the sun. This is not, this is not very good." I mean, there are funny elements, but there are so many like problematic like slurs and like plot lines and stuff that I'm just like, Jesus Christ. And it's not made up for it by like having really funny stuff attached, like to like counterbalance, like, okay, this is like in bad taste, but it's also really funny for certain things. This is just like bad taste, but also not particularly funny. Maybe because I was more aware of all the jokes and I was just kind of like, okay, like it's been a decade since I watched this movie, but I still remember pretty much most of the beats and stuff. And I guess I've grown out of the phase of just seeing someone tased in the face being like uproariously funny, but that's just where I'm at in my life. So it was kind of like a nostalgic mood to be in, but I never really laughed. And then I watched the second and third ones, and the second one's just more so of a retread, but they're in like Thailand and they like once again lose somebody and have to like track down their friend, which is what they do in the first one. The third one shakes up the situation a little bit where there's like more so like a criminal element. Like John Goodman is like a criminal bad guy who is like forcing them to like track down someone who owes them money. So I can't even really remember them having much of a hangover in the third one. So I think that's kind of false advertising. But I like these performers, and that is what is carrying this series away, like along the way for me. But I didn't feel that the second and third ones really dropped too much in quality because I already had it kind of low. And like there are fun people like John Goodman or Melissa McCarthy and different people who show up, and you're like, okay, this is fine. But overall, I just didn't find them particularly funny. I didn't hate them. I like had them on and I kind of just like zoned out a little bit, but it's not a good series, and I hope they don't ever make a fourth one because it's not necessary. All these people are better than this material. Like I love Bradley Cooper, Ed Helms, Zach Galifianakis. Galifianakis, he's done a lot better comedies in this one since then, and or dramatic work. Him balancing that in his show Baskets from FX, like that's a fantastic show. I love Baskets so much. I don't think he ever needs to go back into this role. And then Ken Jeong, like, oof. And then he definitely became overexposed after this series, and he's just like that really thick, purposeful Asian like accent that he has to put on in this. It's just, I know it's for comedic effect, but it's just cringeworthy. So these movies, there's something. And then like so having a retrospective on it also didn't particularly endear me to it. I mean, it's good to have to hear these people talking because I like the performers, but like I don't have nostalgia for this series, so it didn't really do much for me. But it repurposes the original disc and has that bonus disc. So the best thing I can say about this release for me is that if I want to have these movies and own them, this is now in shelf-friendly packaging where it's only taking up one slot instead of three. But other than that, all the audio visual is still the same Blu-ray that was originally released. That's fine. All the extras are carried over, plus the retrospective. If you like the series, which a lot of people still do, I was looking on Letterboxd and logging this, and several of my mutuals still was ranking this like 3.5, 4 stars. They're like hilarious, and this was like viewed in the last 2 years. I was like, I'm glad it's still working for you because it's not working for me. Like that's all about in the 2.5 to 1.5 star range for me out of 5. So that's all I want to say about it. Warner Brothers. Fine, do what you need to do, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. That's funny because I remember seeing that at the time, thinking it was like the funniest thing ever, and then I guess semi recently watched it, just the first one, and I
Mhm.
was like, why did I ever like this? Like it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like
yeah,
we were all brainwashed at a certain point.
yeah.
I don't know. And then I think I seen the second one. It was really bad. And I don't, I feel like I was like out at that point. I was like, nope, third one, I'm good.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm glad everyone's doing better work.
yeah, absolutely.
There's that. So my next one is it's been a little while since I've talked about a Warner Archive title that was actually like fairly older. And I know last week when I did a solo episode, I did two semi recently released Warner Archives movies, but I'm talking about a early 30s Greta Garbo movie, Anna Christie.
Mhm.
And so I kind of just need to get this hot take out of the way. I I know people that like worship Greta Garbo as some like deity.
Mhm.
I think she's overrated. I think she's massively overrated as an actress. Like, I mean, if you tell me like I don't know, like who my favorite classic actresses are, I'd say like Joan Crawford, Barbara Stanwyck, Myrna Loy, like
Mhm.
all of them, like top shelf. I don't know. It's just she has a certain shtick, and it doesn't really like translate for me into something that's compelling. But I know people that love her. I know even when she was still alive, like people were like, just she was a living legend, even in her own time. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't get it, but this movie's kind of just fine. It's a little boring. It's interesting because I think the first maybe 35 or 40 minutes of this movie is in one single location, a bar, and I thought that was interesting. I almost was like, was this based on a play because there's not a lot of locations? I actually thought the entire movie was going to take place there, which would have been interesting. And this has been a crazy week. Usually I like to look up a little bit more information about this movie, but I just didn't have time. But like essentially it's basically a drama about Garbo's character, I guess, is coded as a sex worker, and she's trying to pick her life back up. She reunites with her estranged father, who I also just found intensely, I found all these characters intensely annoying. I was not jiving with anybody here. But anyways, she meets this sailor who seems really like rough and brutish. Like I think he like almost takes a swing at her when they first meet, or like he's ready to like beat everybody up. But they fall in love because like I don't think she feels like she can do any better. It's just this long way about her trying to convince her that she's good enough for him, which I'm like, he's not a prize either. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just one big sulky, stupid drama. Sorry. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to like find nice things to say about it. I mean, it is well shot. I do like some of the performances, even though, like I said, I didn't really connect with anybody. So this one has two versions of this film, which I thought was really interesting. That I wanted to note. There is the German version with English subtitles that is 85 minutes long, and then there is the English version that is 89 minutes long. I'm not sure. Do you recall if previously these had both of these?
I think the German version might be a new inclusion. from what I remember of like the titles, like the little blurb at the beginning, it seems like they just shot two completely different movies, and now we just have both versions. It's not just a simple like here's the like a different language track. They just this is the time where they're just like, we're shooting in German, like she's speaking in German, and now she's speaking in English. So I think this may have been available on DVD, but I think it might be more of a newer inclusion.
Nice. And that's kind of what I was thinking, because I know in the past Warner Archive has done this before. I believe that there was like finally the two versions of Mystery in the Wax Museum brought back together for the first time. So things like that. So that's kind of what I was thinking too. So yeah, I mean, that's really great. And I think the restoration is, of course, top notch. And if you're a film fan and love Greta Garbo, which I know everybody else in the planet does, so this is an exciting release. And yeah, we also get a classic Looney Tunes short, and actually the Anna Christie radio drama with Joan Crawford in the role, which is interesting. So that's probably the closest I'll get to like my better casting. But anyways, I think that's cool. That's such a cool inclusion. I'm sorry I didn't have more nice things to say about it, but I think if you like these actors, you like this movie, it is a great version of it. Like having that other German release is such a cool, like completist thing for Warner Archives. I love that. And yeah, like I said, it looks great, sounds great, has some featurettes, but I just didn't connect with it.
Yeah, and I think we should know, we kind of mentioned this, but the German version, it has been a remaster, but it hasn't been meticulously restored like the original feature presentation. So they say like they ran a fresh scan on it, but they just kind of left it as is. So there are a bunch of nicks and scratches and stuff like that, but compared to any other previous version that they would have had, like this blows it out of the water. But like the newer version, like the newly restored English version, it's fantastic looking. But I didn't want people to like be like, oh, the German version is going to be like just as beautiful. It's not quite, but it's still really nice looking compared to what it was.
And plus, it's just great to have them all together. Really. So.
Yeah, absolutely. My final title is from MVD Entertainment. This is through their 4K LaserVision line, and this is Cutting Class with a young Brad Pitt. And okay, one thing I think is really cool about this line, where you can tell that they have collectors in mind. I'll show you here. So on one side, you have it's a number 4 here. That's for the 4K side. If you're starting a new ordering system for just the 4K line, if you want to include this in your Rewind collection line with everything else, on the other side, it's 56. So you can like either however you want to store it, they're keeping collectors in mind of how. So that's just like a fun little detail that I actually didn't notice until I saw someone point it out recently, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't even realize that, but that's pretty cool. So that slipcover comes off for this underneath here. And so this was previous. Oh, shit. Popped her right on out. This was previously released by Vinegar Syndrome on Blu-ray, but I never had that released previously. So here is the 4K disc and a also Blu-ray disc, and I believe that this base transfer comes from that 2018 4K remaster. So they use that as the base, and they've added like high dynamic range and stuff to make this a 4K release. This doesn't have Dolby Vision. This just have HDR. Like I believe it's HDR10, but this doesn't have Dolby Vision, just like some of their titles. Here's the alternative cover art. I know I'm just like fumbling all around here with all the different things, but so yeah, the disc, alternate cover art, and then you have this fold out poster here. Let's see if it's double sided. No, just single sided. So single-sided poster here. So just a little extra fun thing. This film, I think I'd heard about before, but I'd never seen, and I guess I never scrolled down Brad Pitt's IMDb enough to really know that he was like in it enough until it was announced that this was coming to 4K. But I do really like Brad Pitt, and I do like these other performers from what I've seen of their work. But this is kind of like a tale of like a young man, or this character right here, who has like recently been away at like a asylum for his dad's death, but he like returns, and there's like a questioning of whether he is like completely well, and he used to be friends with Brad Pitt's character, but they've like had a kind of a weird falling out, and he doesn't help things. He kind of acts kind of like as a bully at certain points, and they're kind of fighting over this girl right here, which is Brad Pitt's girlfriend, but there's a little bit of love triangle stuff going on here. And there's people disappearing slash dying around the school, and it's just kind of that mystery of like who is actually committing is it the obvious suspect? Is it someone else that's like conveniently started killing whenever this person who would be the obvious suspect is around? Who is it? And then also our main female protagonist, her dad is like off on a hunting trip, and he's doing his own thing. It's Martin Mull, and he's getting into some shit. It's wild. I wouldn't even get into it, but this isn't like a fantastic movie, but it's entertaining enough. And I won't spoil the ending, but where it ended up, I was just like, oh, is that it? And it just kind of left me a little bit underwhelmed. But overall, it's like a pretty decent slasher-ish. Like it's not particularly bloody, but there's like a few decent kills. But it's more like a teen movie with a little bit of like murder intrigue and just high school vibes and stuff. It's fine. It's good. If it didn't have Brad Pitt in it, I don't think it'd be particularly like notable to most people. But having him like a young Brad Pitt in here is interesting, and he does a good job. Like he shows like charisma, and we know who he became, so that's cool. And this release is really good. The 4K transfer looks very nice. The high dynamic range, really nice control of the colors. It's a really colorful movie in a lot of ways, but then there's also a lot of dark moments that don't seem to crush or anything like that, which I really appreciate. There doesn't seem to be any lingering like damage or anything. There's maybe like some small nicks here and there, but it's been treated pretty well. And then there's a good amount of special features. There's several interviews. And then, so there's like 3 interviews that run from about 21-minute interview, a 17-minute interview, a featurette on the like the deaths that happened in the movie, and like a retrospective and stuff. So decent special features and good audio-visual presentation and nice packaging. So if you're a fan of the film, this is a really good release. I think I saw people saying that it was available on Tubi if you wanted to try before you buy, but I love supporting NBD and their 4K line. So like, of course, I'm going to advocate to like just check it out. But if you like the movie, definitely check out the release. It's a really good one.
Nice. I know I've been curious to see this. I remember when they first put it on DVD a while back, and then Vinegar put it out on Blu-ray, and then this 4K. So it's like every new version of it, I keep like meaning to check it out. So I think I just need to like rip the band-aid off. Sounds interesting. And I wanted to end on a high note. I always like to do that. I don't like to end on like something that maybe was a little bit of a bummer. And this is Loaded Guns. And it looks like your average hard-boiled Polizia movie. But it's very fucking wacky. And it has that charm that is just so damn endearing. Like, yes, it does follow a very stock kind of Italian crime story, but it almost feels like a sex comedy kind of thrown in for good measure. And there's moments that I don't know if I would say are weird enough to be like surreal, but like bordering on just very weird. Even things that feel a little like non sequitur, like just thrown in there. But I love it. It works. You'll have like our main heroine being viciously beaten, which is really disturbing. And then you'll like there's like a wacky scene with like wacky music and stuff. And like ordinarily, like tonal shifts like that don't work, but I think there's something really oddly charming about it that somehow, even with some of the more brutal stuff sort of bucking up against some of the more like, I don't know, like I said, absurd sex comedy stuff, it still just kind of works, which is impressive. It's not the greatest movie in the world, especially it's not even really the greatest of its genre, but I had a lot of fun. I thought it was a cool watch. It's not very long. It's like what, just under, or no, just a little over 90 minutes. So if you want something that's pretty short and pretty breezy, I mean, again, it's like one of those movies you don't really have to think about a whole lot, but I just love how zany it is. And I think it's sort of intentionally very campy. Like I seriously would doubt if they weren't kind of in on its joke a little bit. So it's, yeah, it's a lot of fun. There's a really fantastic commentary track, which I think kind of made me appreciate this movie even more. So again, here's, and I don't think there's anything inside. That disc is cool though. So yeah, this is probably one of my favorite releases this week, besides the film noir set. Really fun. Some of these are a little hit or miss for me, like in this genre, but like, yeah, I just had a blast. I mean, even with some of the more maybe like, I don't know, there actually wasn't as much cringe as I thought there was going to be. So that's, yeah, you've seen this, right?
Yeah, it was wild because I had no idea of this tone that this was going to take, and I was just like,
Uh,
"What is happening here?" But I thought it was a nice subversion of the genre because
mhm.
I watch a lot of these movies for the show and stuff, and just to have something that feels a little bit of fresh, I was like, "Oh, this is great! I love it."
Yeah.
So like, it's not a great movie, but I had a very fun time watching it.
Yeah, I mean the action's pretty decent. Again, they have some nice like twist up their sleeves, but like, yeah, it being kind of zany just made it mwah. Like it just done in the right way. Like
Mhm.
it's zany but not obnoxious. Like that's a fine line to walk sometimes, but
Mhm.
it does it. And again, this might not be on your radar, but if you're into this genre, or I mean, honestly, I feel like if you're kind of new to the Polizia movies, would you agree that this might be a good maybe entry point? I know it's not standard, but it's
Yeah, if you're more so like afraid that you might be bored by some of the like hard crime elements, this gives you a little bit something to like
mhm.
entertain you in a different way.
Yeah,
So ease yourself, and if you find yourself really liking the crime parts, maybe get a little like grittier and darker and
yeah.
stuff.
Like Caliber 9 is probably what everybody recommends to start with, but like I don't know. I think you could do worse for a starter, but that's just my opinion. But it's so cool that